CIERRA is out the villa. Love Island producers are saying she left for personal reasons. Sounds like to me that she got kicked out. For those of you who don't know, CIERRA's been caught up in a scandal because she was caught multiple times using an anti-Asian slur on her page to degrade her own eye shape and say her eyes are, said way, and she's trying to fix the issue. And the East and Southeast Asian community have been on her ass. And as they should. They've been on her ass day and night. I was hearing rumors that Love Island producers were holding crisis meetings. And I guess they decided to kick her out. And as they should. I wasn't sure if they were, simply because it's so late in the show. So I wasn't sure if they were actually going to do it or not. And although I did like CIERRA on the show, she did what she did and she has to face the consequences. And I hope that this sets a precedent moving forward because, the UK could never. People on there saying all sorts of wild racial slurs and we're still allowed to be sitting ugly up in the show. And how they announce it is the same way that they announce Yulissa. One episode she was there, one episode she was gone. We didn't really see anybody look upset. We only really saw Nick look a bit upset because obviously they were in a couple together. But nobody was really that upset. So I wonder when people go for personal reasons, are the islanders given a heads up why? Because I would think that would be really interesting because imagine you were in there and you've made really good friends with somebody and then they kicked out for a scandal, especially Yulissa, specifically for me because I'm black. Imagine being buddy. Imagine Alondria and Shelley being buddy with Yulissa and then the producers telling her why she's been kicked out. I would feel good riddance. Yulissa was only there for a couple days. With CIERRA, they've known her a few weeks. They have formed a bond. They formed a genuine friendship. How is that going to be on the outside? Let's say they don't know about the scandal. How is the relationship going to be now on the outside? Because I think for me, I would have to distance myself. Because in the grand scheme of things, I haven't really known you that long enough to be weathering whatever mess that you're in. And the posts were pretty recent as well. She absolutely should know better. I have seen some people say that they thought that she was Asian. In the beginning, they thought she was South Asian or Middle Eastern, Central Asian. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought she was as well until I saw her last name. But bottom line is, even if she thinks that her eyes look Asian, which is disputed, right? Her saying the word was bad enough, but the context in which she used it in was even worse. Why be friends with someone caught up in a racial scandal when you can be friends with somebody who hasn't caught up in one? It's quite easy to find. So if I was the girls, yeah, I would be distancing myself. What about Nick? He's already gone and had sex with the girl. That's scary. That's one of the scary things that I would hate about being in Love Island. You could be friends with someone, you could form a romantic connection with someone, but you don't really know who this person is because, in Love Island, you don't really talk about politics and stuff like that, racial dynamics. You don't really talk about it. It's all very much like chat. And they just be doing a lot of questionable stuff on this show, and they just be inviting a load of questionable people on this show. Unfortunately, CIERRA is not even close to the most questionable person on this show because that's just how crazy they be casting on this show. And also, just before coming on the show, nobody does a sweep. She clearly did a sweep, but thought that was good enough to stay on her Instagram. I don't know, it was a story. But it seems like it was on her story. I don't know if it's a permanent story or whether this is just an op that, screenshotted it and saved it for the right time because you just never know. I think one was actually in her main feed. So for her to be going on this show and not doing a sweep and leaving that on, thinking that was acceptable to keep on her show, I don't know, maybe because she's Mexican. She thought it's not that big of a deal because she's Mexican. Girl. And even the handler, because if I was my friend's Love Island handler, I would be doing a sweep. Matter of fact, you guys now do a sweep right now of your socials. Would you pass? Because I've already done mine. I passed with flying colours, to be honest. Everything that I've put out, I stand by. Post 2009. Everything else has been burnt. The only one that might have possibly caught me in a scandal is maybe my Facebook when I was a teenager, but I already deleted my Facebook account ages ago. But even with my Facebook stuff, it wasn't no racial stuff. It was just me being a pick me. But yeah, if you're trying to be an influencer out here, if you're trying to have your face out here, make sure you do your sweeps, type in everything you need to type in, and make sure you pass, darling. Like, that's just very wild to me that she just had that up. Especially, like, because there's been, like, a Stop Asian Hate movement as well. And she still had that up, girl. But I gotta hear from you guys how we feeling about CIERRA being basically kicked out of the Love Island house. Do you think fair is fair? Do you feel like they should have let her go to the end? You know, personally, I'm kind of indifferent because she was low-key boring anyway, to be honest. Like, I liked her and Nick together, but for drama, she wasn't really providing much. And at this point, I thought that, you know, her and Nick were just going to lock in and be that boring locked-in couple for the rest of the week. So even from a Team Mess perspective, I'm not really... but I'm feeling quite indifferent about this loss. Obviously, CIERRA's out now. Her man Nick is single. That didn't last very long because literally, one thing about Nick, he's gonna lock in. Yes, he was looking upset, but he knew he was not leaving. If he really liked CIERRA that much, at this point, they're locked in, they're exclusive as a couple, he should have left with her. But Nick is about his business and he really didn't care about CIERRA like that. Again, I don't know if the producers told him what the scandal is, just because if he knew what the scandal is, maybe he might not want to go out with her because it's kind of like, girl, you in a scandal and I didn't even like it that much anyway. But now he's trying to see what Alondra is saying. He's already kissing her hand. They're coupled up now. So, actions, they do, you can do what you want, but your actions have consequences. She's been kicked out of the Love Island villa. It was literally almost at the end. She's going to have to go on offline because the hate is so bad now. And her man already left her. I kind of feel bad for her, I'm not going to lie. But again, your actions have consequences and you got to reap what you sow on. I guess now we await the statement because the statement is coming. Let's hope it's not as bad as Ulysses.